1 Maccabees, chapter 8 through chapter 9, verse 53. Now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them, and brought them under their tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain, for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there, and that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. And the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, they had discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Beside this, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Cittims, with others that lifted themselves up against them, had overcome them. How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants, with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, was discomfited by them. And how they took him alive, and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute, and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon, and the country of India, and Media, and Lydia, and of the goodliest countries which they took of him, and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captives, their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. It was told him, besides, how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all the other kingdoms and isles that at any time resisted them. But with their friends and such as relied upon them, they kept amity, and that they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, insomuch as all that heard of their name were afraid of them. Also that, whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Yet for all this none of them wore a crown, or was clothed in purple, too magnified thereby. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting a way for the people, to the end that they might be well ordered. And that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and there was neither envy nor emulation among them. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achos, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome, to make a league of amity and confederacy with them, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. They went therefore to Rome, which was a very great journey, and came into the Senate, where they spake, and said, Judas Maccabeus with his brethren, and the people of the Jews, have sent us unto you, to make a confederacy and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederates and friends. So that matter pleased the Romans well. And this is the copy of the epistle which the Senate wrote back again in tables of brass, and sent to Jerusalem, that there they might have by them a memorial of peace and confederacy. Good success be to the Romans and to the people of the Jews, by sea and by land forever. The sword also, an enemy, be far from them. If there come first any war upon the Romans, or any of their confederates throughout all their dominion, the people of the Jews shall help them, as the time shall be appointed, with all their heart. Neither shall they give anything unto them that make war upon them, or aid them with victuals, weapons, money, or ships, as it hath seemed good unto the Romans. But they shall keep their covenants without taking anything therefore. In the same manner also, if war come first upon the nation of the Jews, the Romans shall help them with all their heart, according as the time shall be appointed them. Neither shall victuals be given to them, that they take part against them, or weapons, or money, or ships, as that seem good to the Romans. But they shall keep their covenants, and that without deceit. According to these articles did the Romans make a covenant with the people of the Jews. Howbeit hereafter the one party or the other shall think meet to add or diminish anything, they may do it at their pleasures, and whatsoever they shall add or take away shall be ratified. And as touching the evils that King Demetrius doeth to the Jews, we have written unto him, saying, Wherefore hast thou made thy yoke heavy upon our friends and confederates the Jews? If therefore they complain any more against thee, we will do them justice, and fight with thee by sea and by land. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his hosts were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alcimus into the land of Judea the second time, and with them the chief strength of his host, who went forth by the way that leadeth to Galgala, and pitched their tents before Masaloth, which is in Arbela, and after they had won it, they slew much people. Also, the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped before Jerusalem, from whence they removed, and went to Berea, with 20,000 footmen and 2,000 horsemen. Now Judas had pitched his tents at Eleasa, and 3,000 chosen men with him, who, seeing the multitude of the other army to be so great, were sore afraid. Whereupon many conveyed themselves out of the host, insomuch as there abode of them no more but 800 men. When Judas therefore saw that his host slipped away, and that the battle pressed upon him, he was sore troubled in mind, and much distressed, for that he had no time to gather them together. Nevertheless, unto them that remained, he said, Let us arise and go up against our enemies, if peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted him, saying, We shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren, and fight against them, for we are but few. Then Judas said, God forbid that I should do this thing, and flee away from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. With that, the host of Maccabees removed out of their tents, and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into 2 troops, and their slingers and archers going before the host, and they that marched in the forward were all mighty men. As for Maccabees, he was in the right wing, so the host drew near on the 2 parts, and sounded their trumpets. They also of Judas's side, even though they sounded their trumpets also, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Judas perceived that Maccabees and the strength of his army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men, who discomfited the right wing, and pursued them unto the Mount Azotus. But when they of the left wing saw that they of the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Judas, and those that were with him hard at the heels from behind. Whereupon there was a sore battle, insomuch as many were slain on both parts. Judas also was killed, and the remnant fled. Then Jonathan and Simon took Judas their brother, and buried him in the sepulchre of his fathers in Modin. Moreover, they bewailed him, and all Israel made great lamentation for him, and mourned many days, saying, How is the valiant man fallen that delivered Israel? As for the other things concerning Judas, and his wars, and the noble acts which he did, and his greatness, they are not written, for they were very many. Now after the death of Judas, the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the coasts of Israel, and there arose up all such as wrought iniquity. In those days also was there a very great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted, and went with them. Then Maccabees chose the wicked men, and made them lords of the country. And they made inquiry, and searched for Judas's friends, and brought them unto Maccabees, who took vengeance of them, and used them despitefully. So there was a great affliction in Israel, the like whereof was not since the time that a prophet was not seen among them. For this cause all Judas's friends came together, and said unto Jonathan, Since thy brother Judas died, we have no man like him to go forth against our enemies, and Maccabees, and against them of our nation that are adversaries to us. Now therefore we have chosen thee this day to be our prince and captain in his stead, that thou mayest fight our battles. Upon this Jonathan took the governance upon him at that time, and rose up instead of his brother Judas. But when Maccabees got knowledge thereof, he sought for to slay him. Then Jonathan, and Simon his brother, and all that were with him, perceiving that, fled into the wilderness of Tekoe, and pitched their tents by the water of the pool Asphar. Which, when Maccabees understood, he came near to Jordan with all his hosts upon the Sabbath day. Now Jonathan had sent his brother John, a captain of the people, to pray his friends the Nabathites, that they might leave with them their carriage, which was much. But the children of Jambri came out of Medaba, and took John, and all that he had, and went their way with it. After this came word to Jonathan and Simon his brother, that the children of Jambri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride from Nadabatha with a great train, as being the daughter of one of the great princes of Canaan. Therefore they remembered John their brother, and went up, and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain, where they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and behold, there was much ado and great carriage, and the bridegroom came forth, and his friends and brethren to meet them, with drums, and instruments of music, and many weapons. Then Jonathan and they that were with him rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and made a slaughter of them in such sort as many fell down dead. And the remnant fled into the mountain, and they took all their spoils. Thus was the marriage turned into mourning, and the noise of their melody into lamentation. So when they had avenged fully the blood of their brother, they turned again to the marsh of Jordan. Now when Maccabees heard hereof, he came on the Sabbath day unto the banks of Jordan with a great power. Then Jonathan said to his company, Let us go up now and fight for our lives, for it standeth not with us today, as in time past. For behold, the battle is before us and behind us, and the water of Jordan on this side and that side, the marsh likewise, and wood, neither is there place for us to turn aside. Wherefore cry ye now unto heaven, that ye may be delivered from the hand of your enemies. With that they joined battle, and Jonathan stretched forth his hand to smite Maccabees, and he turned back from him. Then Jonathan and they that were with him leapt into Jordan, and swam over unto the farther bank. Howbeit the other passed not over Jordan unto them. So there were slain of Maccabees' side that day about 1,000 men. Afterward returned Maccabees to Jerusalem, and repaired the strong cities in Judea, the fort in Jericho, and Emmaus, and Betheron, and Bethel, and Thamnatha, Pharathoni, and Taphon. These did he strengthen with high walls, with gates, and with bars. And in them he set a garrison, that they might work malice upon Israel. He fortified also the city Bethsura and Gazara, and the tower, and put forces in them, and provision of victuals. Besides, he took the chief men's sons in the country for hostages, and put them into the tower at Jerusalem to be kept. 4th Maccabees, chapter 13. If then the 7 brethren despised troubles even unto death, it is confessed on all sides that righteous reasoning is absolute master over the passions. For just as if, had they as slaves to the passions eaten of the unholy, we should have said that they had been conquered by them. Now it is not so, but by means of the reasoning which is praised by God, they mastered their passions. And it is impossible to overlook the leadership of reflection, for it gained the victory over both passions and troubles. How then can we avoid, according to these men, mastery of passion through right reasoning, since they drew not back from the pains of fire? For just as by means of towers projecting in front of harbors men break the threatening waves, and thus assure a still course to vessels entering port, so that 7-towered right reasoning of the young men, securing the harbor of religion, conquered the intemperance of passions. For having arranged a holy choir of piety, they encouraged one another, saying, Brothers, may we die brotherly for the law. Let us imitate the 3 young men in Assyria, who despised the equally afflicting furnace. Let us not be cowards in manifestation of piety. And one said, Courage, brother. Another, Nobly endure. Another, Remember of what stock ye are, and by the hand of what father Isaac endured to be slain for the sake of piety. And one and all, looking on each other serene and confident, said, Let us sacrifice with all our heart our souls to God, who gave them, and employ our bodies for the keeping of the law. Let us not fear him who thinketh he killeth. For great is the trial of soul and danger of eternal torment laid up for those who transgress the commandment of God. Let us arm ourselves, therefore, in the abnegation of the divine reasoning. If we suffer thus, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob will receive us, and all the fathers will commend us. And as each of the brethren was haled away, the rest exclaimed, Disgrace us not, O brother, nor falsify those who have died before you. Now you are not ignorant of the charm of brotherhood, which the divine and all-wise providence has imparted through fathers to children, and has engendered through the mother's womb, in which these brothers have remained in equal time, having been formed for the same period, and increased by the same blood, and having been perfected through the same principle of life, and having been brought forth at equal intervals, and having sucked milk from the same fountains, hence their brotherly souls are reared up lovingly together, and increased the more powerfully by reason of this simultaneous rearing, and by daily intercourse, and by other education, and exercise in the law of God. Brotherly love being thus sympathetically constituted, the 7 brethren had a more sympathetic mutual harmony. For being educated in the same law, and practicing the same virtues, and reared up in a just course of life, they increased this harmony with each other. For a like ardor for what is right and honorable increased their fellow feeling towards each other. For it acting along with religion made their brotherly feeling more desirable to them. And yet, although nature and intercourse and virtuous morals increased their brotherly love, those who were left endured to behold their brethren, who were ill-used for their religion, tortured even unto death. The Acts of the Apostles, chapter 18. After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome, and came unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them, and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the Spirit, and testified to the Jews that Jesus was Christ. And when they opposed themselves and blasphemed, he shook his raiment, and said unto them, Your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From henceforth I will go into the Gentiles. And he departed thence, and entered into a certain man's house, named Justus, one that worshipped God, whose house joined hard to the synagogue. And Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed on the Lord with all his house, and many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed, and were baptized. Then spake the Lord to Paul in the night by a vision, Be not afraid, but speak, and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee, for I have much people in this city. And he continued there 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. And when Gallio was made deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection with one accord against Paul, and brought him to the judgment seat, saying, This fellow persuadeth men to worship God contrary to the law. And when Paul was now about to open his mouth, Gallio said unto the Jews, If it were a matter of wrong or wicked lewdness, O ye Jews, reason would that I should bear with you. But if it be a question of words and names of your law, look ye to it, for I will be no judge of such matters. And he drave them from the judgment seat. Then all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the chief ruler of the synagogue, and beat him before the judgment seat. And Gallio cared for none of these things. And Paul after this tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Cenchrea, for he had a vow. And he came to Ephesus, and left them there. But he himself entered into the synagogue, and reasoned with the Jews. When they desired him to tarry longer time with them, he consented not, but bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Jerusalem, but I will return again unto you, if God will. And he sailed from Ephesus. And when he had landed at Caesarea, and gone up, and saluted the church, he went down to Antioch. And after he had spent some time there, he departed, and went over all the country of Galatia and Phrygia, in order strengthening all the disciples. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man, and mighty in the Scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in the Spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, knowing only the baptism of John. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom, when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. And when he was disposed to pass into Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples to receive him, who, when he was come, helped them much which had believed through grace. For he mightily convinced the Jews, and that publicly, showing by the Scriptures that Jesus was Christ.